Welcome back. Indy NXT Debrief is me and Archie here to reflect on yet another doubleheader as the show hit Road America as the series crossed the midway point of 2026. Apologies, this episode is a little bit late than usual. Being a week off, a lot of the IndyCar drivers and the Indy NXT drivers went off to whatever they wanted to do, go on vacation as well. Some of us on the podcast, so apologies a little bit later. This won't be a repetitive problem going forward.
So then, this week we have one driver guest. We are joined by Race 1 winner Lochie Hughes, who gives some really good detail on what has been a pretty tricky start to his sophomore season after real expectations that he would be fighting right at the front for the championship. But this was his first win of the season, so here is Lochie Hughes debriefing on Indy NXT Debrief.
So we're now joined by Lochie Hughes, who won race 1 at Road America last time out. So Lochie, congratulations on the victory. It's been a little time since the race at Road America, so kind of what have you been up to since? And obviously great to have you on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Yeah, it feels like a while ago now, but honestly, it didn't even feel like left the weekend at Road America, not even feeling like we won a race because we got taken out in race 2. So, yeah, I think it would have felt like, I guess that's the thing that sucks about the double headers, whereas if we had been taken out in race 1 and then won race 2, probably be leaving the track a little bit happier. But that's just part of it. And yeah, we actually tested at Milwaukee, I think, on the Tuesday afterwards. So that was nice to like have something else to focus on. And then, yeah, just been honestly just since then, just training and at home watching the World Cup.
And I guess you've obviously mentioned it's disappointing maybe you didn't leave the weekend feeling like you've won. Now you've had a bit of time to reflect on it. Just kind of how does it feel to kind of finally get that over the line? It felt like maybe it was a bit overdue compared to maybe what you were expecting pre-season. So just kind of how does it feel just to finally get that first victory 2026?
Yeah, it was nice. Was just like relieved. I knew it was going to happen. It just, our season has been a season of, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I feel like we should have had about 3 race wins by now. Like Indy race 1 should have won arguably in the wet there, and then Detroit we had so much pace at Detroit, and I just stuffed qualifying, and then made the mistake in the race, and then it was good to get the win there, and honestly thought we were on again on Sunday, and obviously, taken out, which is kind of the story of our season. But, just been a very frustrating season, to be honest. I feel like practice, we're always like first or second or top 3. And, we've just been struggling in qualifying just to switch. I don't know if it's to switch the tire on or if the qualifying sessions are shorter this year. I don't know exactly what it is. But, we're always like really quick in practice, struggle in qualifying, and then the race, we have, so much work to do. But that's just the fun of going racing, I guess.
And it was a landmark weekend for Andretti. You were the guy who took Andretti's 100th Indy NXT win, which is quite the accomplishment for the team. So kind of any extra pride, some bragging rights there, like you were the guy to take that win?
Yeah, it was just nice because every weekend they were just like Gabby was texting us going, just a reminder, if you guys if someone wins the race, we're going to do 100th photo celebration and all this kind of stuff. And it was actually after Gateway because, ever since they started saying that, like Indy, I was leading the race. I led all the laps and then lost the race. Like Gateway, we pulled it, led a bunch of laps, lost the race. It was actually after Gateway, I was like, all right, I think we had 2 weeks before Road America. I was like, we all know that, the 100th win's on the line. Let's just not mention anything this weekend. I think we all know by now. And then so no one said anything about it, and then we ended up winning it. So, I kind of forgot until I was in like victory lane, and everyone was like, oh, like the 100th win. I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that part. But so that's pretty cool.
And just focusing in on obviously the move that got the win over the line on Tulio, I remember you saying in the press conference afterwards that actually you were more keen just to defend against Nannini, and then just so happened the opportunity came about. So just talk us through kind of that restart, the move that you ultimately kind of made for the race win as it proved.
Yeah, well, we're all like kind of in, push to path management in these races. Like we want to use it, but like have some left for the end of the race, and we don't actually get that much push to pass. And at Road America, the straights are so long, you can easily waste so much push to pass. So kind of, on that restart was on the button. And kind of Alessandro's kind of looked a little bit too far ahead. And then I kind of had a little gap on the Nini, so I'd like switch the button off and was just like, like just gonna, no need to use it here. And then the Nini kept like getting quicker, like getting closer and closer. I was like, I better like get back on it. And then all of a sudden I'm on it, and the toes started really working really well. And I was like, might be able to just have a crack at the lead here. And then pulled it off, and I was like, that was just like one of those things where, with those long straights, you never know what happens, towards the end of the straight. The suck up doesn't feel too big, like from second to fifth gear, but then as soon as you're in sixth gear with push to parts, it's like, whoa. So just kind of send it around the outside a little bit, and it worked. And it's just like, that's nice, because we had a lot of pace. So but obviously in these cars can be, very difficult to follow sometimes. So it was nice to get that clean air, and then just basically after that was just managing it. Wasn't really driving too hard, just trying to keep the gap at a nice rate where he was never too close, and make no mistakes. And it was just nice to be able to finally get one this year.
And I know that race was pretty frustrating to watch for us because it was kind of stop, start. So when you kind of have that kind of, how do you just approach that from within the cockpit? And obviously you're kind of going, then you have a caution, you're going caution. So whether you're kind of pursuing the lead or in the lead, like how do you manage all of those restarts, I guess?
Yeah, it was definitely frustrating because, just couldn't, I knew we had so much pace, and when the yellow kept coming out, it's like, oh man, I just want to overtake this guy. I was just in my head was thinking, the more we do this, the less, the more push to pass we have for kind of less laps, which means it's going to be easier to defend for, say, the race leader. And so I was just like, come on, let's just go green. But it was around Road America is always frustrating with the yellow because the lap's so long. It's like you're honestly just bored. And then you're trying to keep all this tire temp, and it just it's just boring. It was nice to get back to racing. But it's just one of those things, especially this season. I mean, there's so many yellows all the time with just so many drivers now in Indy NXT, which obviously, I mean, it was only I don't know, I remember watching it as a kid a couple of years ago, and it was I think they had 8 cars in the series. So what it is now is pretty unbelievable.
And you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's been a very long time since you last won Indy NXT, despite having a lot of podiums, a lot of good results, etc. So kind of were you feeling the pressure race by race as kind of this winless drought went on, and kind of what was the weight of that holding on you?
A little bit. Just more just frustration. I think we've led the second most laps this year, but we just don't have the success to show for it. Feel like a lot of people have kind of lucked into some wins this year. We've always been really quick leading laps. Just nothing just ever seems to just go our way. Where sometimes people have those weekends where just everything seems to go their way, and sometimes it's everything's against you. It was just I knew it was going to happen. It's just one of those things that just about, I don't know, it all coming together. It's been hard this year, especially with these double headers. We have one qualifying session for 2 races, which I think is a little bit annoying because you can have one bad session, and it basically destroys your whole weekend. Which would be nice if we had 2 sessions, or you could set a faster lap in race 1 that if that's quicker than your qualifying lap, that helps your race 2 grid, or just something that helps the second race, because especially when you go from having practice on like a Friday afternoon, and then the qualifying's at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. Even for the engineers and everything, the track, the temperature like it's a very different conditions you're going out on. So you can just get lucky and just hit the nail on the head for that one session, get 2 poles, and you're probably gonna grab 2 wins most likely. So yeah, that kind of stuff's a bit more frustrating this year, whereas last year it kind of felt a bit more. Like everything was a bit more prepared going into the qualifying session, which means so much in this series. Whereas if you compare to USF, I could start anywhere in USF and anywhere in the top 6 and almost win the race. But in these cars, it's a little bit different. I mean, this year is a bit interesting. I guess you've seen some people start further back and win races, but I think it's because everyone just keeps taking each other out.
And we've kind of seen every step you've been in the ladder in the US. You tend to start seasons really quickly, get the season off to a good foot. We saw that last year. I know you've mentioned kind of a few things already, but maybe what would you pinpoint the most and what you struggled on in comparison to 12 months ago, when maybe the results don't quite match in comparison to what we saw from you a year ago?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of changes with the car this year with the new gearbox and diff, which has been surprisingly how much it's changed how you drive the car. I went into this season trying to drive the car like I did last year, and you just can't now. So, just kind of had to. I didn't quite adapt as quickly as I would have liked, which has always been one of my strengths, throughout my career, just adapting to new levels. So I think the fact that it was like the same series and different, I just, struggled to adapt as well as I wanted to, and then lost a bit of confidence in myself. But I feel like, you've seen since like Indy GP, we've always been, either, leading laps, one of the quickest, or pole, or winning, we're just, ever since then, we've been, kind of back to where we belong, and just, the way racing goes. But, just the changes this year, where I feel like a lot of people who didn't really have a preconceived idea exactly what the car was last year, haven't had to kind of go through that change with the car, which is kind of, I feel like you see a lot of drivers this year who, were really strong last year, like, myself, Miles, Salvador, kind of, I feel like, it's just been a change for us. But I just feel like I'm on top of it now. It's just about, putting all the weekends together.
What are kind of the differences in how the car actually feels compared to how it felt last year with the changes that have been made?
Just the little stuff like braking is quite different with the diff. It just moves around a lot more. It just it feels very different how it was last year. The same as getting on the traction. I think they changed some stuff about how the power kicks in as well. And like on like a bunch of other stuff that even like setup stuff, like last year I kind of figured out. I learned last year a lot from Dennis, how like I was always trying to set the car up like USF, and he was setting the car up, like a big car after coming from 3 years of F2, and I learned a lot from that. And then this year, tried to implement some of that stuff, and that stuff didn't really work. So then I kind of had to, I felt like just I was starting from zero again. And the fact that, when you lose a little bit of confidence, it makes a big difference as well. So, just one of those, I don't know. It's the first time I've, kind of been in, this kind of position. It's, obviously like probably the worst season I've had so far. But, there's a long way to go.
And you mentioned kind of the confidence factor. When you do kind of lose a bit of that confidence, what does it feel like? And ultimately, how have you kind of managed to turn that around? What has that process kind of been like?
Yeah, I think just, I've always, every year of my racing that I've ever done, I've always been, fastest or top 3, like every race, every weekend, and kind of, always been super confident. And then, just, went into this season with big expectations, and when it wasn't, quite, I know, happening. It's just a bit of confusion, and then just naturally just I don't like to really blame stuff, so I typically put a lot of like, when I win, I like mentally, I like to think it's me, and when I have, when it's not a good race or weekend, I also like to think it's me. So it's I think it's probably not always the best mindset for your own kind of mental well-being, but just I know it's kind of first ever time I kind of went through anything like this, like lost any kind of confidence or anything. Like since I was in karting, I don't remember ever like feeling like this ever. So it's just about just kind of honestly just like being like it's kind of happened, and just kind of like reset and talk to certain people. And there's been some stuff behind the scenes that I've changed, and it's helped me a lot. Just ready to just want to just be fighting for wins again.
And you referred to kind of the expectation. I guess it would probably be fair to assume you came into this year thinking you would be fighting for the championship. And I know you're kind of still there or thereabouts, but I guess like you often hear drivers, sports people saying, well, take it race by race, race by race. How much do you kind of actually focus on the bigger picture of the championship kind of as the season progresses? And ultimately, when you do start off on the back foot, like what sort of impact does it have on that sort of process?
Yeah, like for sure. You always take it race by race, but I think every driver's lying if they're not looking at that championship point gap and everything. You look at like, say, Nikita and Timic, who are like top 2 in the championship. They actually haven't been that fast, but they haven't really needed to. They just got a couple good results, and then just they don't have to make up this big ground or something. Even if they finish 8th, it's okay. Whereas when you're behind on points, if you finish 8th in a race or something, it's you just can't afford to have finishes like that anymore. So that adds a little bit of pressure, but then at the same time you can also race a bit more aggressively because you have nothing really to lose, but then that can also then just equal more crashes and stuff. So it's it's one of those things that right now I'm just honestly just want to go win races, not really thinking about the points right now. And whatever happens. I think this year is pretty crazy. So, and with a double header at Laguna, I think you can probably go into there bloody 35 points back or something and come out winning the championship the way this season's going. So who knows what can happen.
And you mentioned it earlier, and it's only right we briefly mentioned what happened in race 2. Obviously, it seems to be kind of an unfortunate kerfuffle going on in turn 3. So, from your perspective, could you have done anything differently, or was it a case of just wrong place, wrong time for you?
I look back at it, and it's like me and Beaton, kind of went into their racing. I got a little bit of a weird snap through there, caught the car, and then after I did that, I just got a hit from the rear. So wasn't really anything I could have really done differently. I mean, was racing hard for the position into there, and just had a little wiggle and just had to catch it, and that little loss of momentum of me catching it just allowed me to get driven in the back of. So one of those things that I guess just part of racing. It's first lap, everyone's so close. People, people are just, there's not much time for people to react. So, there's not much we could have done.
Right, I mentioned it earlier. Let's pivot on to the World Cup. How much have you been watching so far? You kind of an every game type of guy. Bit of Australia, a bit of USA. What have you been? What's your schedule?
Mainly just Australia. It's annoying because like our game against the USA was literally during practice at Road America, and then our game tomorrow is during practice as well. So it's like they just put it on the worst times for me. But no, I've been watching main all the Australian games, and then if I'm having dinner or something, and there's whatever game on, I'll follow it and then probably go home and keep watching it if it's interesting. Like the Germany game the other day was pretty interesting. But yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool to have. It's something. Yeah, and to be in the US while it's going on. I mean, I know it's not everyone loves soccer here, but it's I know cool to kind of be part of.
Egypt's a maybe possible win there for Australia. Any early score prediction?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like. I want to say like Australia will win, but there's been some games that I've seen in some countries that I've been like, oh my god, how are they winning? Um, so I mean,
A lot
yeah, I think
recently too. Like England, where we're from, was lost to DR Congo yesterday.
I know. See, games like that, it's like, whoa, like you just wouldn't expect, that to happen. So I think, yeah, it's not like we're playing France, so we should have, a very good shot. But yeah, you just can't pick it right now. And then if we get through, we're probably going to be playing against Argentina, so that will be interesting as well. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
All the superheroes in Cape Verde, so you never know what's going to happen there. I mean, there's a
I
lot
know.
of there's a lot of Australians in the Indy NXT paddock now. I heard Beaton and Stafty are both massive Australia fans around their paddock, so there's a few of you really supporting
Yeah.
your country well.
Yes, exactly. There's more and more Aussies coming over to the US as well in recent years. So a couple of years ago, it felt like it was just me. But yeah, now there's a bunch of us.
And talking of Aussie sport, you were at one of the Ashes tests, right? Over the, or I guess it was your summer. Was it MCG? Were you at?
Yeah, Boxing Day test. Yeah, it's like one of my lifelong bucket list items ticked off. Yeah, it was unbelievable, and to see, pretty sure, I think, yeah, England batted first. Australia bowled them all out. Australia batted, got all bowled out, and then England went in again. It was got like good bang for my buck.
Were you at both days, or because it was
No, we
only
just
2 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only 2 days. We were just there for the one day, which was yeah, basically flew in because it's in Melbourne, so yeah, about a 2 hour flight from where I'm from, and yeah, basically flew in that early that morning, went, and then left that night. It was yeah, it was pretty cool. Went with my old man and my granddad, so yeah, it's first Boxing Day test for all of us, and yeah, no, big cricket fan. I love cricket, especially during the Aussie summer. You can't beat it.
Nice. Did you play much cricket growing up, or?
A little bit, more for fun, but like all my Saturdays were like I was always racing. So like if I signed up for a sport, I would miss most of the games. But like before I got into racing, I would play every sport depending on like the season. It'd be like like cricket in the summer, rugby, basketball, soccer. Like I played everything growing up. Kind of not that great at any of them until I discovered racing. So yeah.
Nice.
Lochie, just to round off, you're on your way to Mid-Ohio, obviously another doubleheader weekend, and I guess kind of in the context of championship, how important could this weekend be for you? Just kind of give us a little preview of what you're looking forward to kind of this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very important race weekend for the championship. I think it's who knows what can happen, but if I was to say go into this weekend and win 2 races, all of a sudden the championship points looks completely different, or any one of us in the any one of us drivers in the top 5 really would change the scope a lot. But yeah, no, let's just see what happens. I'm honestly like right now we just want to be winning races. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Supposed to be some weather involved as well, so it's really hot. Yeah, Mid-Ohio is obviously a track that's not the easiest to pass, so I think that Saturday morning qualifying session is going to be very, very important.
Lochie, great to catch up with you. Congratulations to the victory at Red America once again, even though it feels like a long time ago. Best of luck at Mid High this weekend, and I guess we hope to be catching up again soon.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I hope to see you guys next week.
So thanks for Lochie for joining us on this week's episode of Indy NXT Debrief. Hope you enjoyed his insight there, and great to have him on for the first time this year. A little bit overdue, but finally good to catch up with him. But as we always do, Archie, we're going to reflect on what was another chaotic doubleheader weekend in Indy NXT. We can't get enough of them at the minute. Mid-Ohio coming up shortly is another doubleheader weekend. But as always, let's start off with what happened in qualifying.
So, as is standard procedure on these doubleheader weekends, it was the drivers' quickest laps in qualifying that set the race 1 field and their second quickest laps that set the race 2 field. It wasn't really to matter though, because Alessandro Di Tullio took his 6th and his 7th poles of the season and set the 3 quickest laps in the entirety of qualifying, with another utterly dominant display on a Saturday for 9 successive front row starts in this rookie season, which is supremely impressive. For both races, Di Tullio was joined on the front row by Cape Motorsport, powered by Ed Carpenter Racing's Nikita Johnson. And it was a brilliant weekend, as we will get onto, for the KPCR team, with Matteo Nannini also securing 3rd and 4th place starts for the races. So while pre-weekend championship leader Johnson had a very strong qualifying, it was mixed for the remainder of the top 4 drivers in the standings ahead of the weekend. Max Taylor for Andretti qualified 7th and 3rd, but he was actually relegated to 6 positions for both races, so to 13th and to 9th for failing minimum underwing height in post-qualifying tech. That meant that Enzo Fittipaldi, who once again didn't factor entirely at the front in qualifying for H&D Motorsports, was promoted to 7th position for both races, but his teammate Timet Kaharchik, who was 3rd in points, only 3 points behind Fittipaldi, who was 2 points off the championship lead, so Kaharchik only 5 points behind Johnson coming into the weekend. He was actually docked his 2 quickest laps in qualifying for interfering with Colin Kaminsky in his Able machine, so Kaharchik had to start 14th and 16th, which prompted something pretty exciting on Sunday in particular. So in the race 1 order, Di Tullio was followed by Johnson and Nannini. Then it was Lochie Hughes, as you have just heard from, his Andretti teammate Josh Pearson, H&D rookie Jack Beaton, Fittipaldi, and Cusick Morgan Motorsports' JM Correa. And it was actually the same 8 drivers that populated the front 4 rows in race 2 as well, albeit with Beaton in a career best 3rd, then followed by Nannini, Hughes, and Pearson, who all dropped 1 position each ahead of Fittipaldi and Correa. Of note, Miles Rowe, after his heroic win at Gateway, could only manage to qualify 11th and 10th. Dan, on to what happened in the first of this pretty dramatic doubleheader weekend.
So for the first time in what felt like quite a while, Di Tullio took a pole where he wasn't taken out at the first corner. Ironically, it was Hughes in Detroit who took Di Tullio out at the first corner, which was maybe the most unfortunate of them all. But he got through it cleanly on this occasion, took the lead. Hughes was the big mover. He jumped from 4th to 2nd at the start, with Nannini holding 3rd and Nikita Johnson dropping back to 4th. As you'd mentioned in qualifying, Archie, there was a difficult day for a lot of the championship contenders, none more so than Enzo Fittipaldi, who had a very difficult start after kind of outbreaking himself in the first corner and making contact with Andretti Global's Josh Pearson. That gave Fittipaldi pretty significant damage, and he had to pull himself into the paddock, but he seemed to get a little bit lost, which is very confusing as to where he was going. But eventually the team got him back out, but his race was more than done by that point, as he was 9 laps down from the lead. The first lap chaos didn't end there. Those Able Motorsports Jordan Missig found the wall in the kink following a collision with Chip Ganassi Racing's Niels Coulon, which put Missig out the race and the race under yellow for the first of several occasions. When the race got restarted, Nikita Johnson was the big loser. He fell all the way down to 7th in the order, but we weren't racing for long as Juncos Hollinger Racing's Alexander Kariba and AJ Foyt Racing's Nicholas Montero collided in Canada corner, which, as I said, brought out the caution once again. And then as soon as the field got racing once again, we were back under yellow almost immediately as Bryce Aaron found himself beached in turn 1, unable to move after he collided with Colin Kaminsky just before the halfway mark. But whilst this was going on, there was that key overtake we mentioned a little bit earlier when Lochie Hughes pinned it around the outside of Alessandro Di Tullio in turn 1 to take the lead, which he would never relinquish from that point forward. And there would be more trouble for championship contenders at this point after Taylor had to make an emergency stop due to losing tyre pressure. It moved him right to the back of the field and made his day very difficult from that point forward. The race restarted on lap 12, and finally, after the entire race up to this point pretty much being under yellow, we got a significant amount of green flag racing, which was great to see. Josh Pearson was a key mover as he passed Nannini for third, and then Pearson was one really kind of closing down the last couple of laps. Hughes was kind of putting away slightly from D'Attilio, but Pearson was really pushing to gain that second place with. And after several laps of Pearson chasing down D'Attilio, he got him on the final lap with just a couple of corners to go to claim his second consecutive podium after obviously claiming the podium at Gateway last time out. And there were no dramas for Hughes, as we said, who came home to take his first victory of the season, whilst Pearson completed a very good day for Andretti, as we said, claiming the 100th Indy NXT win. D'Attilio rounds out the podium in third, whilst beaten under career best result in fourth place. Matteo Nannini earned his best result of the season at this point in fifth place, followed by his teammate Nikita Johnson in sixth place. Jem Correa finished seventh ahead of Timet Kaharchik in eighth. Pretty difficult day for one of the key championship contenders. Miles Rowe was unable to make significant progress as he finished ninth, whilst his Ava Motorsports teammate Max Garcia finished in 10th. Archie, why don't you take us through race 2?
Yes, and it was quite a story of calamity on the opening lap of the second race. Thankfully for D'Attilio, not for him. He got another smooth start from pole, and behind him, Nannini made a move on his teammate Johnson to jump up to second, which will become quite significant as we progress in this race 2 report. Behind that, though, there was a quartet of frontrunners, basically those directly behind the podium, who were all eliminated from contention. Hughes made contact with Beaton, as he discussed earlier in turn 3. Both of them ended up on the grass and checked up, which led to Pearson running into the back of Hughes. Then Correa was basically caused to run into the back of Pearson as well. Pearson lifted ever so slightly airborne, and it was all just a little bit of a mess. Pearson and Hughes had to pit for repairs. Hughes ultimately only finished 20th and actually ahead of Pearson in the end, who had managed to get out, fell a lap down pretty promptly, and then pitted again and completed only 9 laps. So Pearson ended up 22nd after his back-to-back podiums. There was further teammate contact actually in those early stages, and it feels like not for the first time this season. It was the able teammates of Rowe and Garcia who came together. Garcia had to pit for repairs and ultimately also finished the race a lap down in 18th. None of this actually resulted in a caution, and no caution came out until lap 6 when James Rowe for Ganassi found himself beached in the gravel in turn 13. He also fell a lap down by the time he was recovered and only finished the race in 19th. Following that first lap chaos, the podium remained as it was through the opening few corners. D'Attilio followed by Nannini and Johnson. Taylor had made his way up to 4th. Kuharchik from 16th up to 5th, and he was very much on the move. He quickly passed Taylor for 4th and had Johnson under pressure too, but as they went through turn 5, side by side, Kuharchik found himself pushed wide onto the gravel strip, onto the grass, and about half of the progress he had made was undone as he tumbled back down to 8th. But Kuharchik could not be held back for long. The podium had actually started to check out a bit, with D'Attilio not really coming under much pressure and Nannini and Johnson not really scrapping either. But yes, before long, they had Kuharchik back in the picture to worry about again. He really scythed through what was quite an intense battle in those top 8 positions, really kind of in a bit of a train, and was soon back into the top 5 and making very, very swift inroads onto the leaders. There were no such problems when he got back up to Johnson to take 3rd place on this occasion. And this was ultimately where he finished on the road, Kuharchik, having gained 13 positions, which, if it was not for Miles Rowe making his incredible charge through the field at Gateway, I think would be getting quite a lot more plaudits. Behind that, the battle for 5th place between the pack of cars that I mentioned only intensified. Taylor was defending pretty staunchly from Fittipaldi, but Fittipaldi eventually made his way into 5th, but at the back of what was really a 5-car pack, scrapping in the lower end of the top 10. There was disaster for Kaminsky, who was trying to pass Murray and basically had a draft down the front stretch and ran into the back of the Andretti driver, lost his car, collected the inside wall. And for D'Attilio out front on the 15th lap of the 18, 2 laps fewer than the Saturday race, his lead was evaporated as a second caution was called. This ultimately set up a last lap dash, although D'Attilio had saved ample push to pass to fend off any pressure from behind, and seemingly took his second win in Indy NXT ahead of Nannini and Kuharchik. However, with Nannini only just holding on ahead of Kuharchik, that runner at battle proved pretty crucial because a little over 2 hours after the checkered flag, in the middle of the IndyCar race, no less, there was an email come through from IndyCar officiating announcing that both of the AJ Foyt racing cars, Tertulio and his teammate Nicolas Montero, had been disqualified from race 2. So for Tertulio, the win was lost. Yet more strife in what has been an incredibly unlucky year for many reasons, having led more laps than anyone in the field. So, why the disqualification? It was as simple as the fact that Tertulio was using the set of tyres that Montero used in qualifying, and vice versa. Montero was using the set of tyres that Tertulio used in qualifying. That is not permitted because tyres are, as the rule states, assigned to a specific entrant and cannot be transferred between cars, whether that's being sold, traded, or otherwise reassigned. Further to that, the mistake from Foyt meant that neither car started on their qualifying tyres, which is actually mandated for one round of a double-header weekend. So there were 2 infringements, and that ultimately led to IndyCar officiating determining this the highest level of breach, level 3. So Tertulio's win was stripped. Montero lost only 15th place, and this promoted Nannini to a first race victory in 3 years in Indy NXT, his second actually in 17 appearances, but he took a 2-year hiatus, essentially from racing as a whole. So a 3-year gap between wins for a driver who returned to the series this year. So after starting 16th, Kaharchik ultimately recorded a second place finish by what was not particularly gutting actually at the end of the race, but within a couple of hours had become a loss by only 0.1334 seconds to Nannini. Johnson was promoted to 3rd for what is a 5th podium of the season, though after actually a 4-race drought without a podium, he has still actually not recorded a finish worse than 7th this year. Fittipaldi is ultimately credited with 4th in race 2, but for another championship contender, Taylor lost out big time. He suffered a tyre delamination due to a flat spot in Canada Corner on the sole green flag lap at the end of Sunday's race, so ended up finishing 17th. Anyway, rounding out the top 5 was Miles Rowe, a pretty solid effort given some of their struggles on road and street courses. Beaton was 6th on his best weekend to date, and Correa 7th. Then was really a trio of seeming outsiders from the weekend, finishing inside the top 10 with Salvador de Alba 8th for HMD, then the Ganassi duo of Niels Coughlan and Bryce Aaron. Dan, I guess finish off and give the full rundown of what the standings look like heading into Mid-Ohio.
So for what feels like the 8th weekend in a row, there is a single-digit gap between the top 2 in points. It previously had been 3 drivers in contention, but a difficult weekend for Enzo Fittipaldi has dropped him back slightly. So Johnson continues to hold his lead at the top of standings, having a 6-point lead over Tim Kaharchik. Johnson continues to hold his lead in the standings, but he's only just 6 points ahead of Kaharchik as this series is now past the halfway mark of the year. Fittipaldi is still very much in contention, but he's got some work to do, being 27 points behind Johnson in the lead. And then we have quite a significant gap to Taylor, who, as you mentioned, Archie, had a very difficult weekend. He now lies 61 points off the championship lead over a race victories margin. A further 20 points back is where we'll find Hughes, some 81 points off the championship leader. A big gap, but not unassailable at this point, followed by Rowe, who's a further 5 points back. Tertulio, as you said, Archie, his championship fortunes have changed around completely. He's now 101 points behind, and that's where you're getting to a 2-race victory gap, which is a lot of work to do considering we only have 7 races left this season. And then rounding out the top 10, we have Correa on 224 points. That is 126 off Johnson. A further 15 back is where we find Nannini, who made real progress this weekend after his victory in 5th place in race 1. And then Pearson now rounds out your top 10, a further 2 points off Nannini, but still 143 off the championship lead. So the show now hits Mid-Ohio this weekend. There is one driver change to make you aware of. Ricardo Escoto is going to be racing in Formula 3 this weekend at Silverstone, which means he won't be in the Juncos Honda seat. He's occupied all year. There's been no replacement announced at the time of recording. Now, considering we're probably only 24 hours away from on-track action, it would be pretty surprising for a replacement to be announced at this point, but never counted out. You'll find out on next week's Indy NXT Debrief episode. So the penultimate doubleheader of the season this weekend at Mid-Ohio, as we said. So considering we've only got 7 races left, and this makes up 2 of them, this is going to be a real crucial weekend and just really seeing where the championship battle is going to stand before we go into 3 single header races. So this is going to be a really vital weekend, and we should get a very good understanding of who we can firmly see in the championship picture or who is firmly out of the championship picture. Once again, we apologise this episode was a little bit later than usual. That should not be the case after the Mid-Ohio race. I will also give you a very sneak preview that we have an Indy NXT driver on the show, not an Indy NXT Debrief, but they have a one-off episode of an Indy NXT driver at some point after Mid-Ohio. It's going to be an awesome listen, so I would definitely stay tuned for that as well.
Yes, I echo Dan's thoughts. This was genuinely one of the most insightful interviews we have probably ever conducted, really, and gives some phenomenal insight into the business of racing and how hard it can be for drivers who may have the talent but may not have the budget. So this is definitely one for you to keep an eye out for. So yeah.
But that's all from Indy NXT Debrief at Road America. We'll be back next week to review Mid-Ohio. But for this time, thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening. And we'll see you next time.